From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. First, the headlines. UN reports nearly 10 million Ukrainians now displaced by war. U.S. declares Rohingya face genocide in Burma. UN Security Council renews mandate of UN mission in Afghanistan. Muslims overpower mosque attacker in Canada. U.S. has no funds for its global COVID-19 response. India ranks below Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka in happiness index. Our top story tonight. On Friday, the United Nations reported Russia's devastating assault over the past 3 weeks has forced nearly 10 million people in Ukraine to flee their homes. Also, the Global Protection Cluster said more than 3.1 million refugees have fled Ukraine. The network of NGOs, international groups, and UN agencies also said nearly 6.5 million internally displaced persons are now seeking safety within Ukraine's borders. Nearly a quarter of all 44 million Ukrainians are now displaced either inside or outside of the country. The UN's International Organization for Migration said over 12 million people are estimated to be stranded in affected areas or unable to leave. That's due to heightened security risks, destruction of bridges and roads, and lack of resources or information about where to find safety and accommodation. On Thursday, Russia's defense ministry accused the U.S. of developing infectious diseases in biolabs in Ukraine. The goal is to spread them to Russia disguised as natural outbreaks. Igor Kirillov, head of the Russian Radiation, Chemical, and Biological Protection Force, presented documents seized during Russia's special operation in Ukraine at a press briefing in Moscow. He claimed the documents were of Ukrainian and U.S. origin. According to them, the U.S. had been carrying out experiments in Ukraine with viruses. He claimed one of the supervisors of this research was Joanna Wintrol, head of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency office at the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv. Lebanese group HEZBOLLAH has denied sending fighters to Ukraine to support Russian troops as Moscow's war enters its fourth week. Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah denied the claims in his televised speech late Friday, calling them lies. He added neither Hezbollah fighters nor experts went to the battlefield. Kyiv earlier claimed Moscow recruited about 1,000 fighters from Syria and Hezbollah to fight in Ukraine. It stemmed from Russian President Vladimir Putin last week, giving the green light for volunteers from the Middle East to be deployed alongside Moscow-backed rebels to fight in Ukraine. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu had said 16,000 volunteers are in the Middle East, ready to fight alongside Russian-backed forces in eastern Ukraine. On Friday, Chinese President Xi Jinping said China and the U.S. should shoulder their share of international responsibilities for world peace and tranquility. Jinping spoke with U.S. President Joe Biden in an almost 2-hour-long video call. Both sides agreed the call was constructive, a Chinese government statement said. Jinping said the U.S. and NATO should talk with Russia to address the crux of the Ukrainian crisis. He also said sweeping and indiscriminate Western sanctions on Russia would only make the people suffer. They could trigger serious crises in global trade, finance, energy, food, industrial, and supply chains, crippling the already languishing world economy, he added. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday designated the repression of Rohingyas as a genocide. He made the statement at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. The Burma Task Force has long advocated for the U.S. government to declare the Rohingya crisis a genocide. Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, Task Force chairman, welcomed the designation. He also asked the U.S. government to reinstate all sanctions against Burma that were lifted in the hope of democracy for the country. In 2018, a Republican-led U.S. Congress asked the government to declare the forced expulsion and extermination of Rohingyas a genocide. In 2020, the International Court of Justice made that determination. The UN Security Council on Thursday renewed the mandate of its mission in Afghanistan, which is currently under Taliban control. The one-year extension of the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan received 14 votes from the 15-member body. Russia abstained. Norway's envoy to the UN, Mona Juul, said the resolution sends a clear message that this council stands firmly behind the UN's continued support to the Afghan people. Norway introduced the resolution. Juul said the mandate is critical not only to respond to the urgent humanitarian and economic crises in the war-torn nation, but to also support peace and stability in Afghanistan. The Islamic world should act collectively toward the liberation of Jerusalem and Masjid al-Aqsa, Muslim scholars said Saturday. More than 300 religious leaders from 40 countries participated in the third International Minbar al-Aqsa Congress of Imams, Preachers, and Inviters in Istanbul. Mehmet Gormez, former head of Turkey's Religious Affairs Directorate, said Masjid al-Aqsa in Jerusalem should always be on the agenda to achieve conscientious and concrete practices. Gomez said everyone with a sense of justice and rights must support this cause. He called on everyone to stand against the oppression, occupation, and racism in Palestine. Hassan Turan, head of the Turkey-Palestine Parliamentary Friendship Group, said the Palestinians have been suffering for 73 years. Police have arrested a 24-year-old man for a violent attack at a mosque early Saturday in one of Toronto's most populated suburbs. Andalu agency reports Imam Ibrahim Hindi said worshippers heard the sound of the man emptying pepper spray all over them as they were performing the dawn prayer. Hindi said they turned around to find the man wielding an axe in his hand while pepper spraying them. Mosque members quickly overpowered the attacker, subduing him until the police arrived. No one was seriously injured and charges are pending. Police are investigating possible motivations for the attack, including a hate crime. India ranked at 136 below its South Asian neighbors Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka in a UN-sponsored happiness index. The World Happiness Report, published by the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, ranks 150 countries on several factors. They are measured in various categories, including sense of well-being, GDP per capita, social support system, life expectancy, generosity, liberty, and perceptions of corruption. Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi tweeted a snarky comment against the group for India's ranking, saying the country may soon top the hate and anger charts. Finland topped the list of nations on the index. We're bringing more news stories after this break, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. Brothers and sisters, we all watch the Allahu Akbar lady from India. She's amazing, isn't she? She's neither compromising her hijab nor her education. She's standing tall. We must stand with her. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect her. But it is not just hijab, brothers and sisters. Indian Muslims are facing genocide.
Genocide that we face in India is not a new phenomenon. India has had several genocides.
They are attacked every day. Even the Indian government admits there has been more than 1,800 organized attacks on Muslims, but they call it riot. 660 people are hanged to death in India, lynched in broad daylight, sometimes just because they were accused of eating beef. Yes, accusation of eating beef can kill a human being in India. We cannot remain silent, can we? Alhamdulillah, OIC has spoken, that is good, but why in the World United Nations is silent? The UN has a responsibility to protect. It has a duty to prevent genocide. Sisters and brothers, we must stand with Indian Muslims and other minorities. We are free, they are not. We are not attacked, they are under attack day and night. Let's do our job. I have signed this UN petition. I ask you to sign it now. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. U.S. lawmakers slashed global pandemic response funds from the omnibus spending bill President Joe Biden signed into law earlier this week. Missing from the $1.5 trillion spending bill was the $15.6 billion requested for COVID-19 response, including $5 billion earmarked to fight the coronavirus globally. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Friday the administration did not have an alternative plan for delivering 700 million vaccine doses remaining from the 1.2 billion doses pledged. A White House official confirmed the 1.2 billion doses of vaccines had been purchased. Officials said the lack of funding will devastate the U.S.'s ability to ensure recipient countries can deploy them effectively. The U.S. House on Friday passed the Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair, or CROWN Act, banning discrimination based on a person's hair texture or hairstyle. More than a dozen states have passed a version of the CROWN Act, and many more cities and municipalities have followed suit. California became the first state to pass the CROWN Act in 2019. The legislation's passage moves the nation a step closer to federal protection for African American women, men, and children from discrimination because of their natural hair or hairstyle. In a number of cases across the U.S., this has been used as an excuse to deny them employment and educational opportunities. A 2020 study by Michigan State University found that African American women face the highest instances of hair discrimination and are more likely to be sent home from the workplace because of their hair. A separate Duke University study from the same year found that participants viewed Black hairstyles like afros, twists, or braids as less professional. It also revealed that Black women with natural hairstyles are less likely to land job interviews than white women or Black women with straightened hair. On Friday, South Carolina gave final approval for executions by firing squad. Death penalty abolitionists described the move as barbaric. The South Carolina Department of Corrections told State Attorney General Alan Wilson the agency is now able to shoot condemned inmates to death using a 3-person team. A state law passed last year gives condemned prisoners a choice between the electric chair, firing squad, or lethal injection. South Carolina has been unable to procure lethal injection drugs for years. International and domestic manufacturers have increasingly been reluctant to allow their products to be used to kill people. The Associated Press reports Democratic State Senator Dick Harpootlian, a former prosecutor turned criminal defense attorney, introduced the firing squad option as more humane. A year since New York Muslim student Nafia Ikram was attacked, police still haven't arrested the culprit. The Hofstra University student was badly burned in a suspected acid attack on March 17, 2021. Ikram said Thursday she still endures pain and questioned whether Long Island police are taking the investigation seriously. Ikram was walking into her Elmont home last March around 8:30 p.m. when a person ran up to her and threw a liquid in her face. The New York chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations said at the time Ikram was attacked with battery acid and suffered severe injuries to her face, eyes, neck, and hands. The 22-year-old has spent the past year in and out of the hospital undergoing surgeries. She said her recovery has been a struggle and she has lost vision in her right eye. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September.
I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table.
I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss the U.S. declaration of Rohingya genocide, let's go to Edward Ahmed Mitchell. Over to you, Edward.
Thank you, Samana. Greatly appreciated. We'd now like to discuss some important news coming out of Washington, D.C. Many of you know about the horrific crimes against humanity, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing that was committed against Rohingya Muslims several years ago, and that in some ways continues to this day, committed by the Burmese government. That is the government of Myanmar, military dictatorship. We saw the horrible images of villages full of Muslims, Rohingya Muslims being burned down, women being raped, children being killed, men being murdered, people racing across the border into Bangladesh for their lives. It was horrific. And now the United States government has made a very important announcement about what happened during that violence and what continues to happen to Rohingya Muslims. To discuss this important news, I'd like to bring on two guests. The first guest is Adam Carroll, Brother Adam Carroll. He is the director of UN programs, and he leads the Burma Task Force for Justice for All. Assalamu alaikum, Adam. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome, Salam.
Thank you. And let's also bring on Sister Sharifa Shakira. She is the program associate for Burma Task Force. She's also the director of the Rohingya Women Development Network. Sister Shakira, thank you so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, assalamu alaikum.
Look, we're very happy to have you to discuss this important topic. Adam, let me start with you. Just give us the rundown. What did the United States government announce just in the past 24 hours?
Right. Well, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken announced this morning at 9:30 that the U.S. government was making a formal determination of genocide in the case of the Rohingya Muslims. We've, of course, been asking for such a determination for many years. A Burma Task Force came together first in 2012, and even then, due to the extreme level of persecution, our founder, Burma Task Force founder and CEO, Imam Malik Mujahid, was calling it a genocide. I recall I was a bit more hesitant, but it became more and more clear and an unavoidable fact that, in fact, it was leading to a much worse explosion, which was the 2016 crackdown and then and mass rape of Rohingya women, and then the 2017 mass expulsion of now that was only the latest mass expulsion after other previous waves. So this genocide has been going on for decades, and there's so much evidence. The real question and the real troubling question is, why such a long delay between 2017, when we saw killing, burning, and raping and expulsion, and now it's 5 years. So that is the question.
That's a very good question. Recognizing a genocide 5 years later doesn't stop the genocide or undo the genocide that occurred. Nevertheless, people are saying this is an important announcement. Sister Shakir, can you tell us what, is this important? Does it have value, or is it just too little, too late?
Assalamu alaikum. Brother Adam always remind me that nothing is too late for the justice. We have to keep fighting. until we get our justice. And we are grateful that after working so hard, Burma Task Force since 2012 been working on this, and finally it's been recognized. So we are grateful.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Shakir. And by the way, we all now live in an area where we've got kids working with us and contributing to us, so don't mind at all, mashallah. May Allah bless and protect that young one. So Adam, let me take it back to you then. So same question to you. Is there any value to this? What's the practical impact of this designation? Does it change anything about U.S. policy towards Myanmar right now in a helpful way?
Well, it's a new tool for the toolbox. It certainly is important. However, there's the legal aspect, there's the political aspect. The US government may have already made this determination in private, but they time these announcements for political reasons, not just domestic political reasons, but because of how they are seeing US interests. And so unfortunately, that's the reality of these determinations, is that they are only part of our foreign policy. They don't lead foreign policy. We have some morality in foreign policy, but it's not the only aspect. So I think that what is important to remember is that, whether it's Armenia in Turkey during the Ottoman era, whether it's the mass the killing by famine of millions in Ukraine, of all places, right? Or in Ireland way back 150 years ago. These are man-made disasters, but they take a while to be accepted as genocide. But there's no question that they are mass atrocities, and the US government should take its responsibilities very seriously to act in these cases. The US government, like 149 other nations, has signed on to the Genocide Convention, which names genocide, but also crimes against humanity. So whether it's war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide, we do have an obligation to act. However, it remains to be seen what will be done next. Certainly, U.S. policy has been better than some in this regard, and the U.S. government, because of advocacy from groups like ours, has been very generous in donating towards Rohingya refugees. But how are the refugees ever going to return without restoration of democracy in Burma? How are they ever going to get their rights back, justice in the courts? And they're not going to get their family members back, but perhaps their lands and homes. But how? This is still a big question.
And that brings me to my next question to you, Sharifa. So what is the state of Rohingya Muslims right now? I know you've got, I don't know how many people, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions in refugee camps in Bangladesh, and they're experiencing incredible difficulty there. You've still got some Rohingya Muslims in their homes in Myanmar itself. What's the state of the Rohingya in Myanmar and also in Bangladesh right now?
Sure. So the Rohingya in Myanmar, they are having different other kind of problem. The atrocity that we seen in 2012, 2016, 17, it had not stopped there. Every day people are fear of their life. People are still scared because the violence have not stopped. On top of that, there is other issues like Arakan Army, AA is also taking over Arakan state. So they are facing different kind of issue as well there. So there is no safety for the Rohingya inside the Arakan as well until today. For the Rohingya in Bangladesh camp, they are hoping, like Brother Adam have said, that, what is next? When can we go home? While we are here, we are not able to study, education is not there and all those things. So the situations of Rohingya refugees have not improved at all. I will say it's getting worse by day because of the different situations that are there in the community, in the country. So so nothing have improved. But we hope that the international community will continue come in support of the Rohingya community. And inshallah, one day we will be able to return home, which is our ultimate goal.
Inshallah. Adam, let me ask you this. It seems that, getting a solution to this situation is even more difficult now because the Burmese government has given up all pretense of even playing around with the idea of transitioning to democracy. There was a time when they were playing nice, where Aung San Suu Kyi was popular in the West. Now she's in jail. You've got the democratically elected people have been tossed in jail, and the Burmese military has just taken over and seems indifferent to what the world thinks completely, not only about Rohingya Muslims, but about how they're abusing anyone else. So what is the next step? Is there anything that can be done to put pressure on this military junta to change its behavior towards Rohingya Muslims and others? Or, if we can't get them to not abuse Aung San Suu Kyi, is there no chance we're going to convince them not to be harming Rohingya Muslims?
Yeah, those are all very good points, and it's extremely challenging. U.S. policy has been to somewhat delegate some response to the ASEAN countries in Asia, which are divided on this issue. Actually, they've had a very gradual learning curve. And on one side, you'll have Cambodia and Vietnam, and on the other, you'll have countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, whom perhaps Malaysia right now doesn't treat its Rohingya refugees very well as they used to, but its foreign policy is a little better as far as promoting Rohingya rights to return. But ASEAN, is not going to solve it, and the U.S. has to exert its influence as strongly as possible, since China and Russia are selling arms to the Burmese military. And it's this global game, unfortunately, and who are suffering? The people on the ground. The courts are important. It gives hope for justice eventually. However, and I should mention that the exiled government, one could say the rightful government of Burma, which is called the National Unity Government, the NUG, has accepted the jurisdiction of those courts, unlike the military, which has seized power. So there's actually a huge difference in those leaderships. Aung San Suu Kyi has been sidelined in jail. She became co-opted by the military, unfortunately. And that power sharing was no good for democracy, as it turned out. But I think that, without a new government and a new constitution in Burma, we won't see the restoration of Rohingya rights and homes. We must work towards that end.
Last question to you, Sharifa. So, we've done so many segments about Muslims around the world experiencing persecution: Palestinians, Kashmiris, Indians, French Muslims. The list goes. Uyghur Muslims, obviously, the list goes on and on. What would you say, Sharifa, to the Muslim community around the world? Or have you been heartened? That is, have you been happy to see support from Muslims around the world, or do you feel like the Muslim world has not done enough to speak up for and help Rohingya Muslims? Would you like to see more international unity among Muslim nations? Yes, we know about the West and all, but Muslims first and foremost. Would you like to see more from the Muslim world in support of Rohingya Muslims?
Sure, brother. Thank you so much. Yes, so in terms of the support of the Rohingya Muslim from the Muslim community, to be really honest, I have seen less support, which I and my community always, want to see more. So they've been very generous, in donation, like humanitarian, in terms of humanitarian, like medical, food. But that is needed, but that is not. It won't solve our problem. So we need the Muslim community, the Muslim countries to join hands in support of us, and so that we can return home and to help us, to save us from these brutal militaries. A small country like Gambia, can do their part, and I believe that the other strong countries, the Muslim countries, can do much more than this.
Inshallah. May Allah guide us all to unite and defend each other and defend justice for all people, including members of our own community, of course. Adam and Sharifa, thank you so much for joining us today to share your perspectives and educate us a bit about what's going on. We hope that the United States recognition of what we all knew, to be a genocide will turn out to be helpful and will provide that tool in the toolbox that you all can use to advance positive change, inshallah. Thank you both for joining us. Assalamu alaikum. And with that, Samana, we will turn it back to you.
That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.